I'm going to read now from the book of Matthew, from the 5th chapter. You have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, "You shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment." But I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment. And if you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. And if you say, "You fool," you will be liable to the hell of fire. So when you're offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are on the way to court with him. Or your accuser may hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you will be thrown into prison. Truly I tell you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. You have heard that it was said, "You shall not commit adultery." But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to go into hell. It was also said, "Whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce." But I say to you that anyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of unchastity, causes her to commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. God loved the lectionary. Well, way to go, Harry. You're doing all right. You want to come up here and preach, Harry? Harry, you are doing all right. You know what? You didn't shoot anyone or kill anyone this week. But let me tell you, when in anger you swore at your brother last Tuesday and slammed down the phone, you violated the do not murder command. And as for you, Cheryl, last week you didn't actually sleep with a man not your husband. But let me tell you, on Wednesday you looked at your co-worker, John, and you thought about it. So the do not commit adultery command is in shambles in your life. It's tough stuff, isn't it? From the outside looking in, it looks like Jesus is making God's law ridiculously hard to keep. It's not enough not to murder, but now you're not even allowed to get angry. It's not enough not to commit adultery, but now we're not even to look sideways. Just catch a little glimpse at anyone other than our spouse, lest we burn in hell. From the outside looking in, it looks like Jesus is turning God's law into something different, something much harder to keep. But is Jesus, in fact, changing the law into something new and different? I say no. Is he somehow improving God's law? In effect, replacing God's law with something better? Again, I say no. I don't think so. Actually, Jesus is leading his audience closer to the heart of the law, closer to the heart of the divine law that already carries with it, albeit implicitly, the very deepest of spiritual meanings. He's just using a very, very effective technique of shocking his audience. Most people would agree that actual deeds are always worse, always more harmful, right, than any emotion we may feel or any secret fantasy we may have. Most would agree that murder carries worse consequences than anger. And the actual act of adultery, worse penalties than sexual fantasy. So what is Jesus trying to say when he equates anger with murder and sexual fantasy with adultery? I think the point Jesus is trying to make is that the law of God was meant to foster human flourishing at every level, including the deepest levels of our hearts and our minds. God wants us to respect one another, to love one another, and to see God's own image in each person that we meet. To see God's image residing within every person that we meet. Respect someone and you're less likely to murder him. Love someone and you may be less tempted to cheat on her. And let's face it, if you want respect, then you have to give respect to others. Am I right? It is respect that undergirds the law. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery. What lies beneath is respect. Implicit in these laws is the deeper proverb, respect, you must give it in order to get it. Let me repeat that because it's important. Respect, you must give it in order to get it. The author Scott Hazy, he argues that, I'm quoting him here, human life is not supposed to be some giant game in which you scheme and you scam to get ahead of everybody else. Contrary to what our hyper-competitive society often teaches, we are not to use people as pawns or as objects of our lust or as receptacles of our scorn or as targets of our desires to brutalize, to manipulate, and then to discard. The author and one of my favorite philosophers, Martin Buber, he argues that human beings are not to treat one another as its, but rather as thous. Thous. Imagine this. Treating everyone you meet as a thou. Right? A thou. None of us, not one of us, is a mere bit of scrap wood or rusty metal. None of us are objects or tools to be used as means to an end. Rather, each one of us is the subject of a sentence. Each one of us, a brilliant color in the rainbow, a divinely imaged thou. Right? Worthy of proper respect and honor. And as a thou, each one of us is then called to respect all the other thous with whom we come into contact. And of course, take it a step further, mutual respect between two people naturally translates to mutual respect between groups. Even mutual respect between nations holding vastly different points of view. Oh, Donald Trump, I wish you would hear this. Let's be clear. The only way we're ever going to ensure peace on this planet is to adopt the entire world as our family. Can we do that? My wife just said it'd be expensive. We're going to have to be willing to hug them, to hug them, to kiss them, to dance and play with them. And that's everyone. No matter their creed, color, religion, sexual orientation, or whatever else might divide us from them. And we're going to have to sit and talk and walk and cry with them. And that includes Syrian refugees. Because when we do, we'll be able to see that indeed everyone is beautiful. And that we all complement each other so beautifully, such that we would all be the poorer without each other. Put another way, we must all stand ready to say, I will not stand for any prejudice whatsoever in others or in me. Can we stand and do that? We must adhere to the maxim, respect, you must give it before you get it. For certain, I am me, but more important, you are thou. You're never, never, never an it. Let me tell you a very short story, very short. It's a Muslim story of the Sufi tradition. A young man named Nasruddin planted a flower garden. But when the flowers came up, so did a great crop of dandelions among them. Wishing to eliminate the unwanted guests, Nasruddin consulted with gardeners near and far, but none of their solutions worked. Finally, Nasruddin traveled to the palace of the sheikh to seek the wisdom of the royal gardener himself. But alas, Nasruddin had already tried all the methods the kind old man recommended to him for eradicating such troublesome weeds. Silently, they sat together for a long time. At last, the royal gardener looked at Nasruddin and said, "Well then, the only thing I suggest is that you learn to love them." There's much wisdom in that, isn't there? respect. It leads to love. And love leads to a recognition of the divine image within each one of us. This is the stuff that Jesus is getting at. This is the stuff that lives within, or put another way, it's the spirit of God's law. Not only do not murder, but avoid getting angry. Not only do not commit adultery, but do not look lustfully after another. Jesus is not changing God's law, not changing into something different, something new and improved. Actually, Jesus is leading us to the very heart of the divine law. The spirit of God's law. And that is that God wants all of us to flourish. The I that is me and the thou that is you, along with everyone else in the world. And I say, praise be. Praise be. And I hope that you would respond. Praise be.